You are about to listen to an exclusive interview hosted by our very own Anastasia Papadopoulou on Kanali featuring David Meyer, where he talks about his life and his mother's ministry.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have with us David Meyer, and it's an honor to have him with us. A lot of you may know his mother, Joyce Meyer, and he's going to talk to us about the ministry and what they do around the world. So thank you for being here.
Oh, it's our pleasure. We love Cyprus. I've been here many times. It's beautiful. And we've had the privilege of being able to take my mother's teachings to many, many places around the world. So we're excited to be able to bring it here to Cyprus. And my mom is a Bible teacher, and she just likes to help people to learn better about their relationship with Jesus. And so.
Why don't you tell us about Joyce Meyer's ministry? You have a website?
Yep, joycemeyer.org, nice and simple.
What can somebody find on there?
Everything, anything from all of the stuff we do through Hand of Hope, which is our humanitarian outreach arm around the world, to where you can find us on television and radio, to just devotional things, of course, advertisements where she's going to be speaking, so many things. So if somebody wants to hear Joyce Meyer speak, they could easily visit the website and find any of her teachings there. Yeah, in English, we have live streaming on that site. We also have a second site called tv.joycemeyer.org, and you can see her television programs in many languages there, including Greek.
Well, that's good to know. I hope our listeners write that down. So it's joycemeyer.org or
tv.joycemeyer.org.
Yes. Why don't you talk a little about Hand of Hope? And from what I understand, you do work around the world.
Yeah.
Why don't you share with our audience what exactly you do and what's your focus?
We work on almost every continent, probably 60, 70 countries, and we do many different things, but one of the things we do a lot of is work with children. So we do a lot of feeding programs to starving children. We have about 35 orphanages that we fully run and support. We have 3 different hospitals or clinics that we run in different countries. We also do a lot of work with anti-trafficking, anti-sex trafficking work to try to rescue and save girls that are caught up in that, and several other things. We dig a lot of fresh water wells for people that don't have clean water. So many, many different things. And if you want to know more about that, that's also on the website.
Well, why don't we talk a little about the orphanages?
Okay.
You said 35?
Yes.
Where would you say is the majority of your countries?
Mostly in Asia. We have a very large presence in India, but then from there we have orphanages in India, Thailand, Laos, Myanmar, Cambodia. I'm probably missing one. I think Nepal.
And you also mentioned human trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
Is that related to the children as well, or are you dealing with adults?
Yes, it can be. It depends. Some are dealing with mothers that have been caught up in the sex trade, but they would have children. And so in India, for instance, we have a home where we go into Mumbai and we rescue them, and then we try to restore their lives. In Thailand, it's mainly teenage girls, and then we actually help a organization called A21, and they actually work in Greece, in Thessaloniki.
Yes, we've heard of them, and they also work around the world.
Yes, they're very global. They're very good friends of ours.
So what would you say besides providing for their food and sleep, I assume, and everything else that you do, what's another goal of your ministry? Do you also try to help them emotionally or provide other sorts of comforts that are unlimited to food and clothing?
Obviously, if you're talking about just the normal children's homes, it's complete care. So we take responsibility for them, and so it's education, it's clothing, it's food, it's shelter. If you're talking about the girls caught up in the sex trade, then that obviously takes on a whole nother element of emotional healing and trying to restore their thinking and just trust, many trust issues when you've been exposed to that kind. And then, of course, spiritually, we believe that, spiritual growth and transformation is the key to success in life.
And do you see their lives being transformed or changed once they see something different or find a new form of love in their lives?
Absolutely. It's many success stories. I mean, it's a difficult road for many, and not everyone is willing to, go through the pain that's associated with change like that. But the majority of the girls are, and once they really see that somebody will love them unconditionally, and it's not loving them to get something from them, then their hearts open up again, and they begin to trust, and they begin to grow and flourish the way that we're all meant to be.
Do you know any personal stories you can share about any of the children or people that you've helped through Hand of Hope in any area, not just the orphanages or human trafficking?
Yeah, I can't remember the name of this young person, but it was amazing. In Madagascar, we work a lot with street kids. There's like 50,000 kids that live on the street there and just have no shelter. And so we've just recently opened up a home there to get these kids off the street. And this young man, I mean, it was amazing that just all the horrible things that was happening to him. And we first brought him into our feeding program that we fed the kids every day at noon. And then we were able to bring him into the home and just to see God start to change him and start to allow him to trust. And then he got to go to school. And so yeah, there's all kinds of stories like that we have.
Well, I'm sure it's definitely encouraging seeing that your work has some results and people's lives are being changed.
Yeah, it's why I get up and travel all over the world. It's it brings great satisfaction to know that what you're using your life for is not just all about how can I make my day better, how can I make myself feel good, and how can I do things for me, but to know that your efforts are actually helping and transforming the lives of other people that maybe don't have everything that I have and don't have the privileges that I have.
And that's definitely encouraging. And for anybody else who might want to help, how could they do that? Could somebody, let's say, join your team or go visit any of the places? Do you do things like that?
On a limited basis. It really just would depend on where and what. Probably the biggest thing that we do is we take medical teams every month all over the world to do medical care. So if you'd be interested in volunteering on a team like that, you can just contact our office through the website. Otherwise, it just depends where you live. If you live near one of our projects, obviously you could help. But all of that, you just have to go through our office, and we'd have to know the specifics.
So how would you encourage people who are listening to us today to help those around them?
Well, this is actually very important and key for me because I know people listen to this and they think, oh, that's great that you go to Africa. That's great that you go to India and you help poor people there. But, I don't have the ability to go to those places. And how can I help? And quite often, usually the thing that people say is, well, give your money. Well, that's not the only way to help. I mean, God has needs right in front of you every day if you'll just open your eyes and look for them. And sometimes it doesn't have to be super poor people. Sometimes it's just a friend in need that needs you to listen to them. Or sometimes it's just paying for somebody's meal in a restaurant, that maybe they're having a bad day. Or you see a young couple that's out on a date and, they don't have much money, help them. There's so many ways if you'll ask God to show you how to help situations around you that if you start asking, he'll start showing.
So basically, everybody has opportunities to help daily.
Absolutely.
That's what you're saying.
Absolutely.
And I agree with you. I want to talk a little about God, because you mentioned him and how you spend time also helping people spiritually.
Right.
How do you think presenting God to other people and showing his love can encourage them? Because a lot of people might start out with never even heard of him before,
right,
or knowing his love.
Well, we believe very strongly that we all need to have a personal relationship with Jesus. And nobody on earth or in heaven cares more for us than Jesus does. And he wants to be our friend, and he cares about our problems. He cares about what we're going through, big or small, significant, insignificant. And if we'll just make him our friend and start talking to him about what's going on in our daily life, start to be grateful to him for the good things that are happening in our lives, even very simple, then your relationship will grow, and then he'll actually start to show you the things that he wants you to do, and some of the ways that you can do things for other people. And I'll guarantee every listener this: if you will start doing things for other people and you will start talking to Jesus as your friend, you will be happier on a day-to-day basis than anything else that you could possibly get. The nicest car, the nicest clothes, the biggest boat, the trip, the vacation, all of those things. You'll never be as happy as you are when you make Jesus your friend and you just start giving and helping people around you.
Well, I hope the people who are listening to us today are already encouraged by what you're sharing. I'm going to get a little personal here and ask you, how was it growing up with a mother who is bold about her faith and God is evident in her life? Did you feel like you could see that relationship and that encouraged you to have a personal relationship? How was it growing in that environment?
Well, because I'm the oldest child, my mother was not popular or well-known until I got well into my latter teenage years. So the journey was kind of unique and different, not in a bad way, but she wasn't what she is now. But the one thing I can definitely say about my parents is they have been the greatest example for me in my life. They walk in integrity. What they say they're going to do, they do. They do things with excellence. And so just living and seeing that example has caused me to be what I feel like is a much better human being just by watching their example. Now that she is popular, there's a whole nother set of things that come with that. Sometimes because she gets noticed everywhere, it's just being nice and kind to people. Maybe sometimes you're tired and you don't want somebody asking you to sign this or take this picture, but I see her always be gracious, always be nice and kind to people, because that's the way Jesus was.
So you would say that she's very real in her faith.
Yeah.
And I think nowadays and where we live, it's really important for people to see sincerity and that somebody is real in what they do, not just an act, not just so that the world can say you're doing the right thing, but because its source, it's real and it's coming from somewhere.
Yeah, people are smart, and they know when you're saying one thing in public but then acting differently when you're not in public. People know when you mean what you say. And, one of the greatest things we can do as Christians is live the life that we say we believe. And it's not always easy. I don't always feel like it. I'm not even successful all the time. But the great thing about God is when we mess up, when we don't do right, we can go to him and say, Jesus, I messed up. Please forgive me. Help me to do better tomorrow. And he will.
Well, and I think at the end of the day, it's always encouraging when you see people who are open about their failures, and that encourages other people because they know that they also mess up. They're not alone. And so it's important to be honest with each other and open about our weaknesses. And that's where, at the end of the day, God's strength comes in and helps us become those better people.
It's probably the number one reason that my mother has been so popular and successful is that she's very transparent that with whatever she's done wrong. If her and my father have had a fight at 8 a.m., and she's preaching at 7 p.m., she's probably telling the story about how they just fought and how they got over it and what God taught them in the middle of that. And people appreciate that. People appreciate that the people that are speaking to them about the Bible actually live real lives like they do. Yes. And have to deal with real problems. And it's not, the 5 steps to glory, that sounds good, but I don't know how to do that. It's about forgiving people when they've offended you. It's about loving people that you don't want to love, and that's real life.
Well, for sure. And I can imagine how somebody might have had a struggle through the day, and then they hear one of your mother's preachings or anything that she says, and they say, wow, she also got into a fight, or she also went through that. And I think that's why we should also try to talk to other people about what's going on in our lives and be open about our faith, our struggles, our questions. I wanted to ask, through your ministry and even the website, could somebody contact you personally and address to you any questions, or if they want to talk to somebody?
We have many, many people that can help with anything that you might want. You can, if it's something very specific to outreach or something that I do, obviously you can contact me through the website. But it would just really depend. We have, I guess, what we would call specialists, that if you're dealing with, maybe marriage problems, they can help you with that. Or if you're dealing with problems with your kids, I might not be the best person to help you with that. But yeah, we are a ministry and we're here to help people. So any way that we can help, we'd be happy to try.
Well, I asked earlier about your childhood. I want to ask you now, as a parent, how do you perceive your relationship with your children, and what are some of the principles you tried passing on to them?
Well, both my children are now grown and through college and do not live in the house anymore. They live in other countries, actually, in other states. And so, one of the greatest things as a parent is when your kids go on to adulthood and they still love Jesus and they still are living the life and they're successful and to the best of what we can see, that's the case with our kids. And I see that they try to be kind to people and that they don't live for themselves and that they are integral people, meaning that, if they tell you they're going to do something, they follow through. But they're not perfect. None of us Meyers are perfect. We all have many challenges and issues, but we're in this journey together with Jesus to try to help people. And so if you're looking for perfect people, we're not the ones to look to. But if you're looking for people that have the same kind of problems that you do on a day-to-day basis, but are still making it and still trying to do their best, then maybe we can help.
I think that's important, admitting that nobody's perfect. But at the end of the day, we all know that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you wanted to expand on any of the other areas that Hand of Hope focuses on, because you mentioned orphanages and human trafficking, but you said there's other areas.
Yeah, one of the things we feel very strongly about is digging freshwater wells. We've done 700 or 800 of these now all across the world, and it's just amazing when you can give somebody fresh water that so many of us take for granted, because you go to your tap, you turn it on, and you have water. Well, in many of these more poor places in the world, I remember I was in Tanzania, and these village people would walk almost a half a day to get water that was contaminated and dirty, bring it back, another half day's walk, and many of the village was sick all the time. Well, we were able to go in there and dig a well right where they lived, and it completely just changed their whole life. And when we went in there, very few of those people were actually Christian people serving God. After that, they start asking the questions, well, why are you doing this for us? And that gives you the opportunity to share your faith. And now there's a church there with well over 100 people that attend, and there's a school where their kids are getting educated. And so you may think, water. Well, it's a tool that leads to so many other things that we believe very strongly in. So there's just story after story like that.
And definitely when people see that you've helped them, and not just helped them in the general sense, but their daily lives, and when you're struggling with even finding clean water, I'm sure that in itself affected how they started viewing you, and that you sincerely want to help and help improve their lives, not just telling them what you think is right, but seeing that you care for them as people, as individuals, and for their daily needs.
Right, exactly. Most people have heard the you need to do this and you need to do that, but when you show them that when you actually do this, it works, it's just a whole different message.
So we see your mother being portrayed as a very strong woman. I would like to know a little more about your father. Mm-hmm. How was he for you growing up, and would you say he was still a leader and an influential person in your life?
Yeah, my father has always been the head of our family. It may seem like because my mother is the public figure that she runs everything. That's not the case at all. My mom submits just like any normal woman would in a healthy marriage to my father, and he leads the family. But he's also been strong enough and self-confident enough and not insecure to where he's let God do what God wanted to do in her life, and it didn't make him feel bad about himself. He knew what his part was, and he's very good with finances, and he was very good with arranging all the television and administration. So he operated in the gifts that God gave him, but he allowed my mother to operate in the gifts that God gave her. And so often we as men think, well, we've got to be the one out front, or we've got to be the leader. And many times that is the case. But when, your wife or your daughter or your sister is called to do something great for God, it's important if you just let that happen and support them in that, rather than just feel like that, well, I'm the man and I have to be the one, because, that's not always God's plan.
Well, and that's beautiful what you just shared about how they each understood their role, and I think that's how they flourished in their gifts and what they were capable of doing. And I can understand that your dad has been very supportive in your mother and the rest of you, and in just encouraging her in what God called her to do.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny. Early on, when he was trying to figure this out, he decided, well, I'm supposed to be the one to teach, and so he started trying to teach this group of like 20 people that they had at their house, and it was so horrible because he wasn't operating in what God called him to do. And so very quickly he figured out, well, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing, and he let Mom do the teaching.
How would you encourage people today to see what their strong areas are and how they could figure out what God is calling them to do?
Well, I think, like I said earlier, so much of it comes back to, your relationship with God. If you have a good relationship with Jesus, and you're in good communication with him, you start asking him, what does he want you to do? And then, over time he'll tell you, and it doesn't mean you're always going to get it right on the first go. Sometimes you have to try something that you think is right to figure out that isn't right, to try something else. And so, but that's okay. There's nothing, failure is not a final outcome. It's okay to fail, as long as we learn from failure and move on. And so, it's not easy today to know exactly what it is that, each individual is supposed to do, but you just step out and try things and try to hear from God and listen to smart people around you, and like our parents.
Well, and I'll take what you said earlier, how there are needs around us, and there's always opportunities to help. So I'm sure if each person started trying to help in different ways, they'll slowly start to realize where they're called to be or what they can or can't do.
Yeah. So many people think they want to be in ministry, and so they look at someone like my mother and think, well, I want to do that. And that's what being in ministry is all about. Well, yes, that's a part of ministry, but there's 100 more people that are going to do very simple things of serving in the church or serving humanity in a way that will never be as public as my mother. And it's just as important. God sees it just the same. And so, yeah, there's so many opportunities around us if we'll just start looking for them.
Well, and it's what you said, at the end of the day, it's not about who sees you, but it's about your true motives and how you put your heart into things. And I'm sure God sees no difference there, even if you're the person who'll bring a glass of water or you'll be up there sharing. He knows your heart and where you stand. Yeah,
motives is probably one of the greatest struggles that we will all have in life, is trying to realize why we do things, just understand why we do things, and then once we understand them, to do them for the right reasons. And there's not one human being on earth that doesn't struggle with this. I don't care what they tell you. We all struggle with wanting to be more important, or wanting to feel important, or wanting to feel good about ourselves. And really, until we get our worth and our identity from our relationship with Jesus, we're always going to have something missing, no matter what you have.
And from my personal experience, I see that the most beautiful people are those who have truly found their identity and aren't insecure, as you said, in what they're supposed to do or who they are, but they try to live that to the fullest and constantly bring it back to Christ, seeking, for his guidance. And I think it's a daily struggle trying to leave behind our selfishness and our self-worth and 100%. What we think we should do or we shouldn't do.
Yeah. We're never going to arrive. It's a lifelong journey. Every day you'll have successes. Every day you'll have failures. And the important thing is just to get up tomorrow and try to do better than you did yesterday.
And I think that's why it's also encouraging seeing even ministries like Hand of Hope or any other organizations out there who also take that step and try and give to those around them and help and see people in need and really try to be there for them, not just for their food or any other thing that they need in life, but also as individuals and as people, and show them love. And I know people talk about this often, but I wanted to know, what's your definition of love?
Well, I think for me, love is just truly and sincerely caring about other people, caring about their success, caring about what's important to them, loving people for who they are, even if they don't fit into the mold that we put them into. And so, yeah, I mean, that's love to me, is just accepting someone for who they are.
And I think that's a really beautiful note to end on. So thank you for having you here today and joining us. And I want to repeat the websites that you mentioned in case somebody wants to check them out. JoyceMeyer.org or tv.joycemeyer.org. And I'm sure on there they can also find books that they want to order or hear anything that your mother or the ministry has shared, and more information.
If you want it, we've got it.
So thank you. It was great having you, and looking forward to hearing more from you in the future.
Thank you so much.
This was an exclusive interview that was hosted by Anastasia Papadopoulou on Kanali, featuring David Meyer, where he shared about his life and his mother's ministry.